everyone, and welcome. My name is Chinara Satkiva, and I'm an activist for women in technology leadership roles. I'm also a staff technology manager at Widevine here at Google. I am so excited today to introduce our special guest, my personal mentor and a dear friend, Shelmina Abji. Shelmina is amazing. She is a philanthropist, she's a TEDx speaker, a former vice president at IBM, and an angel investor. Shelmina started her career as a software engineer before becoming a sales leader. In her book, Show Your Worth, 8 Intentional Strategies for Women to Emerge as Leaders at Work, Shelmina provides a blueprint for women to accelerate their success, and especially for women of color and women who are underrepresented in their roles. Welcome, Shelmina. We're so honored to have you here with us today, and congratulations on your fantastic book.
Well, it is my honor, Chinara. Thank you for having me. And this is even more exciting because I get to do it with you.
Thank you so much. Shelmina, I'm really excited for our conversation today, but before we get started, I just want to remind our audience that we'll be opening things up for a Q&A later on. So please be sure to add your questions in the chat box. All right, so before we jump into discussing the book, can you tell us more about what inspired you to write it?
Yeah. You know, Chinara, I come from humble beginnings in Tanzania. I was the first person in my family to obtain a college degree. In fact, I had to leave home when I was 15 because there was no education past 10th grade in the town in which I grew up. But I was stubbornly determined to obtain a college degree because I firmly believed that if I had a college degree, I could lift myself and my family out of poverty. So that journey led me to become the first person, obtain a college degree, come to the United States. And even though I faced many challenges, and because I was a trailblazer, I had to learn many, many lessons. I was very fortunate that I was given so many opportunities, and there were so many people along the way that helped me. So in 2014, at the peak of my career, the next paycheck, the next title didn't hold as much significance and as much meaning as it did before. What held significance was, how could I pay forward? How could I pay forward to the universe for all the opportunities that were given to me? I'm very aware that there are so many women all over the world, including where I grew up, that didn't get these opportunities. And so many people helped me, and I wanted to do something which allowed me to make a difference. I wasn't exactly sure what that was going to be. I left my career and I started mentoring hundreds of women, and you were one of them. And I started speaking at colleges, at conferences. And Chinara, I learned that no matter where I spoke, whether it was in the United States or in Brazil or in India or in Nairobi, Kenya, women have shared experiences. There were women who were so ambitious. They wanted to succeed, but they didn't know how. And so they would ask me the how-tos, and I would share what I had learned in my career. There were other women who were opting out of the leadership pipeline because they were disheartened. They couldn't see anyone that looked like them, that spoke like them in leadership roles. And so they started believing that leadership was not for them. And then there were mothers who felt that they couldn't climb the corporate ladder and be a mom or a single mom. And I started sharing with them how I did it as a single mother since my children were 2 and 4. In a few years, around Thanksgiving of 2018, it was almost as if the universe was conspiring to deliver a message. And 200 people within a span of 10 days were either calling me or texting me or reaching out on LinkedIn and reminding me, remember that conversation we had? Because of that, I got a promotion. Remember that conversation. Because of that, I have a better relationship with my boss. Remember that conversation. Because of that, I pushed myself outside my comfort zone. And now I felt like I had proof that my insights, my strategies not only worked for me, but it was working for all these women that I had an opportunity to interact with. That's when I started dreaming bigger. That's when I thought, if I wrote a book, I could reach millions of women worldwide, and I could become a change agent. I could change the number of women in leadership roles, especially women of color, women who are in underrepresented fields. So today, my purpose has become to advance gender and racial equality in leadership roles. And I am doing it through my book, through my mentoring, through my talks.
Well, I know you've been really inspirational personally to me, and I'm so happy that you're now sharing your wisdom with the world. Well, let's jump into Show Your Worth, 8 intentional strategies. One of them you talk about is intentional value creation, and it's about becoming essential to your organization. But we also know that there are a lot of barriers that women face in the workplace. So I just wanted to see if you can talk about one of the barriers you faced and how you overcame it.
Yeah. Chinara, I was fortunate in a way that I learned very early on in my career the importance of value creation. You see, upon graduation with a degree in computer science from the University of Wisconsin in LaCrosse, small university, I was on a student visa. And so no one really even interviewed me except for one company. One startup technology company in St. Paul, Minnesota, interviewed me and gave me a job. The $27,000 that they offered me was more money than my parents could make in 10 years. And I was ecstatic. I thought, this is it. I'm going to lift myself and my family out of poverty. We're never going to be poor again. I will be working in the United States of America. And so I went into work every single day with a spring in my step, just full of gratitude. I would pour my heart, my soul into my project. And I did a really good job on my project. But I was stuck between a rock and a hard place because I needed to create unique value, not just value that anyone else could create, unique value so I could not be replaced easily. That's the only way my company was going to extend my visa. But what happened is I started looking around and I realized that in a company of 2,000 people, there was no woman of color. I was the only person that looked like me. I was the only person that spoke like me. Everyone had more experience. Obviously, I was just starting out. They had advanced degrees, master's, PhD, Harvard, Carnegie Mellon, Stanford. And I thought to myself, what value am I going to create? What is it that I would know that they don't already know? And I immediately started undermining my own capabilities. So the first barrier I had to overcome was an internal barrier. I started undermining my capabilities, which resulted in me becoming afraid to speak up in meetings. Every time I wanted to speak up, this fear would resound loudly in my head. Don't say anything. They're going to find out that you're stating the obvious. They must already know what you know. And so I never said anything. 3 months passed, and I was very aware that if I didn't figure out a way to create unique value, my dream of lifting myself and my family out of poverty would be very short-lived. And one Tuesday afternoon, and this is so vivid in my head, Chinara, I feel like it happened last Tuesday. I had this really great idea because we had a problem the company was trying to solve. It was around testing our software. And I wanted to speak up. But again, this voice of fear, loud in my head, stopped me from speaking up. And it was as if my idea jumped from my head into the head of the guy sitting across from me. And he stated what I was thinking.
Mm.
The room lit up with enthusiasm. Everybody started giving him kudos, pats on his back. And then I heard someone say, "What a unique way of solving the problem."
Mm. Mm.
And I went into the bathroom. I looked at myself in the mirror and I said, "Shelmina, that could have been you. You should have spoken up. You
Right.
have ideas that matter." And that shift in my own head from my ideas won't matter because I wouldn't know anything that they don't already know to my ideas do matter. That was the first barrier I had to overcome. The second barrier, obviously, was the fear of speaking up. And so what happened is the next time, within 2 weeks, I had another great idea. And again, this fear loud in my voice, don't speak up, saying all these things to protect me. But this time there was a faint voice of courage. That courage, because I had told myself that my ideas mattered, this voice actually spoke up. And it said, "Speak up, Shelmina, this is your chance." And it got louder. If you speak up, you'll be able to create unique value. If you speak up, they might extend your visa. If you speak up, you will never have to be poor again. And that voice got louder and louder. In Chinara, this was this aha moment when I realized that these were voices in my head. This was my mental chatter, and I could decide which voice to
Mm.
give credence to. I have the power to slow down and to soften the voice of fear and louder and louder make the voice of courage. And that was in my power. That was the day I coined this term, power quotient.
Mm.
Your power quotient is your ability to scan your mental chatter and to intentionally pick a response that will enable you to show your worth. That day I spoke up. Chinara, I didn't even breathe until I stated my idea. My stomach was so tight,
Mm.
but I spoke up because the rewards of speaking up were so much greater than the risk of speaking up. And so it took me a while. I had to learn how to exercise my power quotient over and over again. I
Mm.
had to learn to quieten my voice of fear. I had to learn to use my voice of courage. But over time, it became easier and easier. So while there are barriers, it is up to us to either give in to those barriers or to find a way to overcome those barriers.
Right. Mm.
And these internal barriers are so strong, unless you overcome them, you will not be able to stand up to the external barriers which you will face,
Mhm.
especially as you rise up in the career ladder. There will be people doubting your capabilities.
Yeah.
And if
Well,
you are also doubting your capabilities, you will gift wrap your power and give it to them. But when you know what you're capable of, then what they think will not matter. You will show your worth in every interaction and you will educate them.
yeah, thank you so much. We actually that brings us really to the next strategy is about intentional growth, right? So you talk about how you will inevitably stumble in the process of that growth, and if you're not uh, stumbling, right, that means you're not stretching yourself enough. Can
Yeah.
you talk about a specific example where you may have stumbled and how you managed it?
Yeah, yeah. Before I go into the specific example, let me just give you some context. So, you are hired for one reason and one reason only, and that is the value you create towards the success of your organization.
Mm-hmm.
In the chapter of intentional value creation, which we just discussed, I teach women how to overcome all those barriers and how to intentionally create value in all your interactions. That's how you will be able to create outsized value. But here's the thing is if you continue to create value at the same level
Mm-hmm.
over a few years, you will be passed for leadership roles. If you want to accelerate your success and fast track into leadership roles, you have to intentionally grow your competence. You have to intentionally seek assignments that push you outside your comfort zone, that challenge your current competence, and that build new competence. Because the more competence you build, the higher the value you create for your organization. And the best way to build more competence is to step outside your comfort zone. And over my career, Chinara, that was the one thing I learned and I did over and over again. But let me share an example of a time when I overdid it. I wanted to become an IBM executive. And so I moved into our services organization from hardware into the services organization where IBM was investing money. Our organization was growing. So I was guided by my mentor that there will be more opportunities for executive level positions. So I signed up for it. I was already a second line sales manager running a team of 150 people, all the Pacific Northwest as well as California states. I had a quota of $880 million. I was doing really well. I knew my team, I knew my executives. And then I moved into the services organization where I knew no one. And it was a lateral move. So I was a second line sales manager, supposed to be leading this organization. And I got on my first call where we were talking about, or rather, they were discussing the biggest deals of the quarter. Chinara, I couldn't even understand 75% of the conversation they were having. You know, technology is notorious for using acronyms. and so I couldn't understand anything. Luckily, it was a conference call. In those days, we weren't doing the video chats. They were conference calls. And because my team was all over there, I had all the states west of the Mississippi. And so my team was all over. And so we were on a conference call. I am sweating bullets. And I'm thinking, which part of me was stupid enough to leave a job that I was excelling at, to leave a job where everyone knew me, where I knew everyone. And here I am. I can't even understand what they're talking about. How am I going to create any value? How am I going to lead this organization? Luckily for me, by then, Chinara, I had surrounded myself with so many mentors. And I had a conversation with one of my mentors, and I said, I am so lost. And I am really afraid that I will not be able to make my quarterly numbers. You see, this team that I inherited, and perhaps the reason they hired me is because no one else wanted the job. It was the least performing team in the country. And so she said, Shelmina, it's a new job. You're not expected to create value right now. Just listen and learn. Learn, talk to people, talk to your clients. Your sales leadership is what this organization needs. They are great at service delivery, but you are great at sales. And when you put these two together, magic will happen. And so that gave me hope. And I started listening and learning, talking to my clients, talking to my team, talking to my leaders. And I figured out how we could change the way we were going to market. But by the time I did that, the quarter had already ended. And here I was, Chinara, you know, I was the one getting accolades every quarter because my numbers were great. But this time I didn't make my numbers. And it felt like a failure, you know?
Yeah.
And again, I talked to another mentor and she says, redefine your definition of success. You're not a failure. Look at how much you have learned in this quarter. The competencies you have built. This will enable you to have a much better quarter next year. And of course I did, not next year, next quarter. And by the time the year ended, my team was the first in the nation.
Wow.
And so the thing that I want our readers to take away is when you step outside your comfort zone, if you're not stumbling, you're not pushing yourself hard enough. So you need to stumble. That's just expected. But when you stumble, remember that you are learning because you are stumbling. The thing is to never give up on yourself. You keep learning and you keep trying new things. And when you build that competence, look back at who you were when you started that assignment, and celebrate yourself for having learned so much and having grown so much, because you see, your career is a long game. The
Mhm.
experiences every quarter over time will not matter. But what you learn, the competencies you build, the relationships you build, they will stay with you forever, and they will allow you to make better future decisions. So there is no such thing as failure when you're stepping outside your comfort zone. It's all about lessons learned to become even more successful in the future.
Oh, thank you so much. It's so important to remember this, but yeah, sometimes you get in your own head.
Yes, yes, we
But
do.
you also talk about throughout your career, you learn two important things. So one is uh, who knows you, and the other is how you're known. And I just wanted you to talk more about that. I found it
Yeah.
really fascinating.
One of the exciting things about my book is that
Mhm.
I have put into my book 30 years of my learnings. And
Mm,
the question that you're asking is something I learned after I became a first line manager and after I became an executive. And I want to teach every reader
mm,
everything I learned so they can get fast tracked into their leadership roles. So when I first became a first line sales manager, I realized that the conversation about people that we were having in the room when they're not present was determining their career trajectory.
mm,
The plum assignments, the stock options, the salary increase, the awards, everything is determined when you are not in the room. And the way people talk about you when you're not in the room is
mhm,
what we call your personal branding. You see, at our hectic pace, it's very easy to show up to work on autopilot. But when you do that, you could potentially be leaving behind impressions that are not aligned with the brand you want to create for yourself.
mhm,
So when you become intentional about how you want to be talked about, how you want to be known, then you make sure that you behave that way. You
mhm,
make sure that the impressions you are leaving behind are aligned with the brand you want, because that branding is going to determine your career trajectory. The second thing I learned is when I became an executive. For every executive role at IBM, and I'm sure at Google and any other tech company where we have a bench, at least three candidates are being considered.
mm,
Each one of these candidates could do the job. Their name would not be on the slate if they were not capable. Their name would not be on the slate if they had not built a leadership brand.
mm,
But now, the person who gets the job depends on who around the table is going to advocate for them. We call
mm,
them sponsors. Who around the table is going to put their credibility on the line and say, I trust Chinara to get that job done? That's the person that gets the job done. So in my book, I am teaching people to become intentional about building relationships. And one of those relationships is your relationship with your sponsors, people that are sitting around the table making decisions on who gets those executive level roles.
yeah. Thank you. Yeah, this is definitely something that I've been thinking about a lot. And it's great to be able to read something like this in detail as a blueprint, like that. This is what you talk about. Um, Given that this is Women's History Month, for me,
Yes,
it's about celebrating women.
yes.
Can you talk more about why is it so important to celebrate our success?
Yeah, yeah. Thank you for asking that question. Chinara, I used to always beat myself up for everything that I did wrong. And then I learned that I was depleting myself of my energy. And so, in the second chapter of my book, I teach readers how to create a personal success plan.
Mm,
And the role of that personal success plan is every week to keep you on track to achieve your success. And one of those one of the things that I am asking the reader to do is to set aside a weekly reflection time.
Mhm.
And in that weekly reflection time, I'm asking the reader to look back. Obviously, you want to learn from your mistakes. Obviously, you want to course correct. But
Mhm.
I don't want you to dwell on the mistakes and the course correction. I want you to dwell on the successes that you had last week. You
Mm.
see, that creates a success mindset. I want you to celebrate your successes because that fills you up with even more energy. Success will breed more success. It'll fill you up with even more energy to go to work the following week and achieve even more success. Celebrating yourself and your successes is the cornerstone of achieving more and more success sustainably and over the long term.
Mhm.
We are great at celebrating everybody else's successes,
Yeah.
but we don't stop to celebrate ourselves. And it is so important to do that. Either surround yourself with people who are celebrating you or you become your own cheerleader. Don't wait for anyone. Recognize that you have been working so hard to be where you are, to achieve what you're doing. Please celebrate yourself for everything you're doing.
Thank you so much. It's such a good reminder. So I just want to remind our audience members to make sure to put your questions. Shelmina is here to answer them, and we'll be picking them up in a few minutes. So I'm just going to ask one of my questions before we go into Q&A. Given the economic situation, I feel like a lot of people are feeling anxious about the future. And I wanted to ask you, what is the best career advice that you have received?
Yeah. You know, so many, but one of the best career advice I have received is focus on what you can control. Do not expend your precious time and energy on what you cannot control. You see, uncertainty is always going to be there. The economy is going to contract, it's going to expand, it's going to do what it does. And when you focus on what you can control, when you focus on building your competence, when you focus on creating value, when you focus on building relationships, when you focus on intentionally building a personal leadership brand, you will always be able to create value either for your organization or, God forbid, if something happens and you lose your job, there will be someone else for whom you will be able to create that value. So, you see, we have limited time and energy. And every day we get to decide how are we going to invest our most precious
Mhm.
asset, which is our attention. How are we going to invest it for maximum returns? Every moment you take fretting over things you can't control, you're taking it away from things you can control.
Yes, thank you so much. Let's see. So before we jump into Q&A, I also wanted to see if you can talk more about another intentional strategy that you want to call out to our audience.
You know,
Mhm.
intentional leadership branding, and I touched on that. Who
Mhm.
knows you and who you know.
Right.
But I want people to remember that sometimes it takes years to build a brand that you're proud of, and it can take moments to ruin it.
Mhm.
So when we go into work, when we go into any meeting, whether it's a one on one meeting or it's a meeting with your senior executives, set intentions
Mhm.
because these intentions will drive your behavior. If you don't set your own intentions, you will be driven by someone else. And so set intentions that I am going to behave in alignment with the brand that I want for myself. I have worked hard to build this brand, especially when you know you're going into a contentious meeting, especially when you know you're going into a difficult situation. Because Chinara, when situations are going well, when people are being very nice, it's very easy to respond nicely.
Right.
But situations are not always going to be the way you want them to be.
Yeah.
People are not always going to give you the benefit of the doubt. They might have negative stereotypes. They might even, for whatever reason, have conscious or unconscious biases. And so when you become intentional, you will not let their behavior drive your behavior. So this intentional leadership branding, you want to show up as a leader no matter what. And when you show up as a leader, when the situation is not good, when it is highly emotionally charged, people will remember that. So own it. Own the way you show up, own the way you interact, own your behavior, own your decisions, own your power. Use your power quotient to never give your power away to anyone.
Yes. Thank you so much, Shelmina. I know that when I was struggling, I asked you once about, I said, I have such a long list of things to do. What should I do? And you said, say no. And it was so difficult at the time. But you teach in your book, there's particular ways of saying no. Maybe you could tell us a little bit more about it.
Yeah. So, one of the strategies in which I teach you to create your personal plan, the strategy is actually called intentional attention. And as I said, you have limited time and attention. No, these days I use attention instead of time because in our world where we're multitasking, we might physically be somewhere, but emotionally we're not present. And so I use the word attention. You have limited attention, limited energy, and you get to decide where you're going to allocate your attention. So when you structure your days around your priorities, I even share a story of how I learned when I joined sales, because I was diluting my attention trying to work on every deal that was on my pipeline. And I wasn't making meaningful progress until my sales leader taught me how to qualify the opportunities and prioritize only the deals that are worthy of my attention. So always be asking, is this worthy of my attention? Should I be doing this task? Will it move me closer to my definition of success? Will it contribute towards the success of my organization? If not, then you must learn to say no. So when you structure your days around your highest priorities, that just automatically means that you have to say no to what is not your highest priority. But how you say no is really, really important. You could alienate people in the way you say no. And that's why I had to learn how to say no. And I teach the reader how to say no. So you, in fact, deepen your relationships. You are showing people that you respect your attention, you respect your time, you respect your energy, and you are only going to invest them for maximum returns, not just for yourself, but for your organization. This will actually earn you respect. When you respect yourself, others will also respect you. But when you start saying yes to everything, then people will throw things at you that they don't want to do.
Yeah.
That's not how you're going to move ahead.
Well, thank you so much. Yeah. So let's get to our audience questions.
Okay.
Let's see. So Chanel asks, I hope I'm saying a name right, Chanel. What are some ways to intentionally create more value? Shelmina mentioned taking on stretch opportunities as one example, but I'd love to hear what else she recommends.
Yeah. Thank you, Chanel. Chanel? Yes. Thank you. Chanel Garcia. I see that. Thank you for asking the question, Chanel. The best way to create value is to know yourself. And so in every chapter in my book, I have a section of exercises. And the first thing I ask you to do is introspection, that self-knowledge of your strengths, your weaknesses, because when you lead with your strengths, that's when you create maximum value. You do not want to put yourself in a position where you take on an assignment where you're leading with your weaknesses. It'll be an uphill battle. You won't be able to create maximum value. You also want to understand what kind of culture is an enabling environment for you to create maximum value. So the questions around knowledge of yourself, knowledge of your environment will enable you to create value at your maximum capacity. The other thing I recommend, and encourage you to do is to lean into your uniqueness. You see, each one of us are different, and difference is good. Unique perspectives is what drives innovation, is what makes your organization competitive. So don't try to fit in, don't try to be someone else. You lean into your authentic self and your uniqueness to create unique value that can neither be replaced nor be replicated easily by anyone else. That's how you become essential to your organization. Now they need you more than you need them. So know yourself, push yourself, learn new competence, and go into work every single day. Go into every meeting, go into every interaction every single day, setting the intention of creating value at your maximum capacity. If you don't do that, you will start reacting to what's coming at you. You will be on autopilot. So become intentional, know who you are, know the environment, go into work, lean into your uniqueness, and create value at every interaction.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for that question. All right, our next question is from Azaria. Shelmina, you're so inspirational and I really resonate with your mindset. Do you have any advice on how to stay consistent with pursuing your goals or burnout?
Yes, burnout. Yes. Thank you for asking, Azaria. That is so big. So the way you stay consistent with your goals, the first chapter of the book actually teaches you how to intentionally define success. And having goals is part of that, personal and professional. Because you see, we as women are never just about our career. We are mothers, we're wives, we're sisters, we're caregivers. And each one of these roles gives meaning to our lives. So write them down. And then the second chapter of intentional attention gives you and teaches you how to stay consistent and on track to achieving your success every single week. You see, we live in a world where things are changing really fast. And if we are not consistent and if we don't stay on track, we will get derailed. So having this personal success plan is really important to stay on track. The third chapter actually talks about work-life balance. And in there, I teach you how to prioritize both your personal and professional life so you don't get burnt out. Because you see, when you get burnt out, you get depleted of your energy. Your performance depends on how you show up and your energy. So by getting burnt out, you're neither doing yourself a service nor your organization a service. So you need to know yourself. You need to set time aside to recharge yourself. You need to create a morning routine. And I share with you my morning routine that will energize you every single day to show up as your full self, not depleted, not burnt out, not overwhelmed. Because if you are not your full self, your ability to create value will become suboptimized.
Yeah, thank you. I really love how you provide these actionable steps. Okay. And the next question is from Hylin. How does faith or belief play a role in your professional and personal life?
A very big one. You know, understanding yourself, understanding your values is the cornerstone of being able to define what's important to you. And so whether you call it faith or belief or values, I talk about values. And in the first chapter, very first chapter, I actually ask you to define what your values are. Because when you are not aligned with your values, you will not be able to do the best possible job. So know yourself, know your environment, know your values. The more self-knowledge you have, and that's why I have introspection in every single chapter, the more confidence you will have in your ability to make decisions and to make choices.
Yes, thank you. I think we have one more question from John. How do you suggest women stop getting in their own way of success. A lot of times we self-limit and don't reach our greatest potential because we unconsciously believe some stereotypes about
Oh,
women.
thank you, Joan, for asking this question. You see, if you don't believe in yourself, you can't expect anyone else to believe in you. The world is going to take you at your own estimate. You have this one life to live. In fact, the starting of my book, the very first chapter, I talk about this, and I'm going to quickly see if I can get to it. And it says, "Don't let anyone rob you of your imagination, your
Mm.
creativity, or your curiosity. It's your place in the world. It's your life. Go on and do all you can with it, and make it the life you want to live." This is by Mae Jemison, first Black woman in space. You see, if you get in your own way of success, you will come to the end of your career and you'll say, why did I do that? So read my book. I will teach you how not to get in your own way.
Okay, I think we have actually one more question.
Okay.
All right, it's from Hamida. Shelmina, how do you identify the mentors or sponsors around us?
Oh, such a great question, Hamida. I have an entire chapter on intentional relationships. And, one of the things that I teach you, I actually teach you how to look for mentors, and I teach you how to look for sponsors, and I teach you the difference between mentors and sponsors. In the limited time we have, I'm not going to get into the details. You'll have to read the book. But the one thing I will tell you is be very intentional about who you seek advice from. Because you see, people mean well, but they can only advise you based on their capacity. So if you have a mentor that is not challenging you, if you have a mentor that is not growing you, if you have a mentor who does not have the capacity to advise you to move forward, you are going to suboptimize your success. So you must be intentional about who you seek advice from, and have multiple people depending on what your need is. And then sponsors are very important as you climb up the corporate ladder. And sponsors are people in your organization, because they are people that will be sitting around the table making a decision. Mentors can be anywhere. You can identify them anywhere. In fact, in my book I say, I'm your mentor, I'm your champion. I'm going to show you what to do, but you're going to have to do the hard work. Sometimes mentors come in form of a TED talk. Sometimes mentors come in form of a book. But they're everywhere. You have to seek them out and be intentional about it.
Well, thank you so much to our audience for all the amazing questions. And thank you, Shalmina, for answering them. Before we let you go, I just want to ask you, how can we help you in your mission to accelerate racial and gender equality in leadership roles?
Thank you for asking that question. The problem I'm trying to solve, Chinara, is so big that I can't do this on my own. And so what I'm asking all of you to do, first and foremost, is opt into the leadership pipeline. I want to see more women represented, especially women of color, in every room where decisions are made. And so the first thing you have to do is opt into the leadership pipeline. I am teaching you how to do this. You will have to do the hard work. And then as you move forward, bring others with you. Create a rising tide that will lift many boats. Become a trailblazer and an inspiration and a role model for someone who is watching you, and you don't even know who is watching you. So bring others along with you. Let's all together commit to changing the number of women in leadership roles, and together we will achieve gender and racial equality. And then a personal favor I'm going to ask you is, when you read my book, if it resonates with you, which I hope it does, gift it to someone. Write a review on Amazon. Write a review on your social media. Encourage others to read. Encourage them to opt into the pipeline, into the leadership pipeline. This is not going to be easy, ladies, but we're not cut out to be easy.
Mm.
We're cut out to do some hard work. So let's do it together. Let's support each other and let's all become change agents. So together we can achieve gender and racial equality in leadership roles.
Oh, thank you, Shelmina. I love your book. It's been a great inspirational conversation, and I hope to see you soon.
Same here. Thank you so much for having me. And thanks, audience, for taking time to listen to us and everyone that asked questions. I really appreciate you. I celebrate you. Thank you.
Thank you.